Hello there and welcome. Today we're going to talk a little bit about how the CFD buildings works, the wind tunnel building, and generally how a wind tunnel and CFD affect your parts, as well as go over a couple of myths/rumors that aren't necessarily true. So let's get started with your CFD and wind tunnel buildings. These buildings give extra effects if you invest CFD time, but those effects only affect the part that you're investing CFD time into. They do not affect expertise. And it's actually really easy to test this, even for yourself, but we are going to be using a level 1 CFD and wind tunnel building here. And we're going to go ahead and take an underfloor. We are going to invest all of our CFD and wind tunnel hours into this underfloor, and we're going to make first one design and then a second one with first level 1 buildings and then level 5 buildings, and we're going to compare and see if there's any difference. So we'll be using the same save to start off with. We're also going to be using an editor to upgrade our wind tunnel and CFD building to level 5. So basically everything will be the exact same. The only difference will be the difference in the level of buildings, and we'll be using 6 engineers and Rush to get this done quick for both projects. So let's get that done sorted really quick here now. I'm going to run 2 projects here, a CFD and full investment of CFD and wind tunnel on the first underfloor, and then a second project. So let's see exactly how the gains of CFD and wind tunnel work out for us. And here we are with our second underfloor. Now if we go and take a look at these 2 underfloors, we can see that the initial one, 4, 4, 4, 10, about a percentage point across the board. And the one that we did afterwards, that we did not spend CFD time on, actually has about triple the gains compared to the first one. Of course, this one is going to give us some base gains and expertise also, but those gains should not be high enough that we're basically doubling our output going into the third underfloor. Now, the reason why we're seeing this huge jump is straight up because we invested CFD and wind tunnel time into this second design, and when we make the third one, we kind of realize those gains in performance. And this is kind of also why I always recommend people to not split your CFD time up between 2, 3, 4 parts, because to actually see the gain itself, unless you're really, really high expertise, basically up towards the cap, which is going to take you 5, 6 seasons to reach, there's no real point in splitting your CFD time, because again, you are going to have to make 2 designs to realize the gains. And the lower your expertise is to begin with, the bigger these gains are going to be. So particularly when you are just starting a creative team with the worst team, you're playing a team that has low expertise to begin with, you'll generally see huge jumps if you invest all of your CFD time into one part. And that is a result of you starting with lower expertise and also the expertise gain given by investing the CFD time. So in our case here with level 1, we ended up with 4, 4, 10 across the board. We ended up with 13, 11, 27. And now we're going to go ahead and do this with a level 5 facility and see if that gives us better gains, both in terms of stats for the parts, but also in terms of expertise. Now, here we are with level 5 facilities, and as you can imagine, the initial piece here that we are going to be designing is going to be better than the initial piece that we had last time around. But that's not necessarily a good thing, and we'll be seeing that once we make the second design. But as you can see here, instead of 4, 4, 4, 10 across the board and a percentage point, we basically have improved our gains by around 50 to 60%, and that does probably make you think that upgrading your CFD and wind tunnel building is a good thing, but in reality it isn't. And we're going to go ahead, get this one rushed, exactly the same way we did the previous one, and then we're going to get the second design made, and then we'll compare to the initial one. And here we are. Here we have the initial one, which used level 5 buildings. It's way better than the other initial one, but the third design here is still identical to the level 1 CFD and wind tunnel buildings design, and the reason for this is very simple. The CFD and wind tunnel buildings does not affect expertise gain at all. The only thing they affect is the added stats from investing CFD and wind tunnel time onto the part. And in our case here, even with level 5 buildings, they are no match for the expertise boost that we are getting. And honestly, it's probably going to be more of a waste of money, because if we look at it from a different perspective, the facility upkeep, in this case 520,000, which translates to a little bit over 6 million, and 624,000 for wind tunnel, both of these facilities upkeep go under the cost cap. And if we add them together, it's going to be quite a sizable sum. Now, if we were to compare it to, say, the level 1 CFD and wind tunnel, if we compare them, we can see that the CFD sim, 91,000 a month, the wind tunnel, 78,000 a month. So, as you can imagine, you would be wasting a lot of cost cap that probably would be better spent just running either research or design to get the same kind of boost, rather than upgrading and investing into these two buildings. You never should invest in either of these unless you've hit the basically cap, the highest level that you can reach with expertise, because then you might need CFD and wind tunnel to push it even further. But that is going to be very late game. That's going to have to be a card that's been min-maxed for probably 5 to 10 seasons. So, unless you have maximized your suspension simulator, your car part test center, and your design center, there's really no point in upgrading these buildings. And even then, I'd argue that it isn't going to be worth it, because it's extremely costly from the perspective of the cost cap. And again, the gains are very, very minor, and you only get 6 CFD periods a year. So, there's no real point in upgrading these for that reason. Now, another question that you probably has is, does it work the same for research? In this case, we can see that we get 2489, and this is on a save where we have, again, gone ahead and upgraded our facilities to level 5. And if we were to compare it to level 1 facilities, like we have here, we're going to be seeing very, very similar results. If we now put in all of our CFD and underfloor, CFD and wind tunnel hours into the underfloor, we'll be getting the exact same expertise gain with balanced sliders. So, as you can imagine, the CFD and wind tunnel building does not have any effect whatsoever on your expertise gain, which is arguably the most important stat to kind of focus on when it comes to your car's performance, or rather your car's future performance, your stat gain, things like that. So I wouldn't really recommend upgrading these ever. Again, if you're reaching the peak of expertise, you might see some small benefit, but because the upkeep costs are so prohibitively expensive, there just isn't a point, really. The gains are just too small for it to ever be worth it. Now, other than that, there is also other interesting myths that I've heard. One of the most common ones that it has actually reached double digits in terms of comments is you can't design or research without CFD time. And if you do, you are cheating somehow. So what I'm going to head and do here is basically just disprove that very simply by not investing in a CFD and wind tunnel and start a design. So you can do that. There's no problem in game to just go ahead and design and research without CFD time. You'll have less gains, yes, but there's nothing that prohibits you from doing that. If there is anything else that is that I have been unclear about in this video, or anything else that you would like me to look into, we can do that some other time. But particularly with the CFD and wind tunnel buildings, they just are not worth it in my opinion. And hopefully this video has helped in showcasing that. Now, unfortunately, a bit of a short video today because I ended up having to work when I was supposed not to, because we were lacking a lot of people. So apologies for the lack of stream. Apologies for a bit of a shorter one. But I thought this one was still a very important one to make, because CFD and wind tunnel are extremely expensive in this game, yet they don't really provide any benefit, and you could arguably consider them noob traps if you really, are very critical about it. But with that said, I hope you still enjoyed the video. If there's any questions about CFD, wind, or anything else, feel free to ask, and I'll do my best to respond. And I hope to see you around next time. Again, if you enjoyed the video, please like, subscribe. Bye bye.